Hi there everybody, Tim here again of course, and today we have a special series of videos for you, but again, only the first couple parts will be put up on YouTube, the other parts will be part of my lessons on the Web Academy. Let me tell you what this is all about. So this is a series almost exclusively for intermediate students, and it's called How to Get Better at Piano, which is probably what a lot of us are wondering, especially if you've seen a lot of my YouTube videos. You've learned the basics and you're wondering where to go from there. So the series will take you there, but really what it's mainly about is your practice schedule, or your practice, really, your piano practice or music practice, and things you should incorporate in that practice to get the most out of the time you spend at the piano. So this first part is just going over really what makes a good practice schedule, and then the other parts, and I'm not sure how many parts this is going to be, it could be well over 10. It's really going to go over the things to add to your practice to get the most out of it. So things like scales and arpeggios, which we've already gone over how to play those. That's one of the first parts, or like one of the next parts to the video. But I'm not going to show you just how to play the scale like I have before. I'm going to actually tell you how to incorporate it into your piano practice, why it's important to practice these things so that you can get the most out of it, like I said. But today's video is exclusively about really just your practice routine, how to make a good routine, what makes up a good practice session, and how to get the most out of what you're doing. And then, like I said, as the parts go along, I'm going to go in more and more detail about the actual things you want to put into your practice time to become the best musician that you can, or the best musician you want to be. One thing you'll find out is a lot of it has to do with your goals as a musician, in terms of what you should put in your practice and how long you should practice and how often you should practice. But we'll go over that in the video today, so let's not waste any more time and let's get started. Alright everybody, so we're going to talk about practice today. Everybody's favorite thing to do, right? Well, if you want to become better at piano, or learn piano really at all, you have to practice, and you have to practice regularly. So that's one of the main parts of good practice, is regular practice and consistent practice. So what I mean by that is it's better to practice 20 minutes a day than it is to practice 3 hours for 1 day a week. Kind of makes sense, but let me explain why. Well, your brain can much better retain information in smaller increments as it can in a very large one. Like 3 hours is a lot of time for a lot of information to sink in. So your brain will be able to basically remember what you do, and you'll be able to process it a lot easier if you do it in smaller bits. Now, depending on what your goals are, you may have to practice a lot every day, hours and hours every single day. But if you're just starting out, or you're an intermediate, you may only need a smaller amount of time each day. But the main point of this is that consistency is a lot more important than the time, really. I mean that spending a lot of time all at once, just because you can retain a lot more. But the other thing it helps do is it helps create good habits. Good habits are really a key component of being successful. In my opinion, being successful in almost anything is about forming good habits. So if you have bad practice habits, you're going to spend time at the piano, but you're not going to get a lot out of it. You may get really frustrated. Now, this takes a lot of getting used to, for sure, because you have to understand, how to focus on your practice. And one of the ways to do that is to turn off all those gadgets, turn off all the devices, try to get as quiet as an environment as you can. Now, obviously, actually where I record, I have problems with fans and things going off. So that's something I have to deal with. That's not too big of a problem. Just make sure that you don't have, the TV on with something playing. Don't have anything, try to not to have anything around that will take you out of your focus. So focus is another key component, along with consistency. Focus on what you're doing. You want to make a list, which is actually what we're going to talk about in the further parts in the series. A list of things to incorporate your practice, and focus on those things. Try not to deviate and play random songs, or songs you hear on the radio, unless that's something you want to do. I mean, something you want to incorporate in your practice. But whatever you incorporate, make sure you focus on that. and make sure you focus on it for a certain amount of time. One thing I tell a lot of my beginner students, or even some of the more advanced ones, is to get a timer. Make sure you set that timer and you stick to it. Now, whether you just want to set a time for the entire time you practice and you can manage, how to spend that time accordingly, or if you're somebody that needs to set the timer for everything that you practice to make sure you're putting, 15 minutes into this or 20 minutes into this or half an hour into this, do that as well. So a timer is very helpful in both, having good practice habits, having good frequency, consistency, and focus. Making sure, when that timer's on, you're focusing for that entire amount of time if you can. I mean, some of us have trouble with that. I have a little bit of trouble with that myself, but stick to it. And just like practicing the piano, practicing being focused is something you can get better at for sure with time. So you always want to be focused and you don't want to deviate. You want to make sure you are in an environment that is good for just staying focused on task. So another thing that's good about, or that's part of a good practice routine is developing good consistency, like I've talked about, but at the same time, change things up every once in a while. So say you practice 7 days a week, ideal, right? Some of us may not be able to do that. If you could get 5 days a week, that would be perfect. But, if you get 7 days a week, maybe one of those days, just change it up and play maybe something different. Because if you do the same thing all the time for months on end, you're going to get tired of it. And that's one of the things you don't want to do, is get tired of it. So you want to balance having consistency and being focused along with having fun, really. I mean, you want to have fun with it still. If you're not having fun with it, maybe you need to change around your routine a little bit, make it a little bit more engaging for yourself. So even though you want to work towards consistency, don't be so stuck in consistency that it ruins your overall experience. So it is a balance, and it's something that you'll just have to kind of get as you go along. Now, a lot of people ask me, how long should I practice the piano for each day? Well, it depends. If you're just starting out, 15 minutes to half an hour should suffice if you're learning the very basics. And depending on how much time you have, if you're a busy person, you're going to have less time, obviously. But if you really want to become an intermediate student, you want to advance yourself, probably an hour a day is probably what you should shoot for. And then if you want to be more of an advanced student, 2 hours to 4 hours may be what you need if you want to, learn in a conservatory and work your way up to that. So it really depends on your goals. But I think for most people, half an hour to an hour a day, you should be able to make some improvement with that. And again, it really comes down to focusing and consistency. And I know some of us have more problems than others, both retaining information and staying focused. Like I said, I struggle with that a little bit as well.